Hello, amazing listeners of the Becoming You podcast. Guess what? It's been 2 months of listening to me talk every Saturday. I'm so excited about this. We already have 9 episodes out, so this is our 10th episode. Double celebration, please. It's double celebration. How are you doing? As you can see, I feel good. And I'm so happy about this. Bringing this to life, I was so scared. To start. And I remember my friend would always tell me, start anyway, start afraid. And here I am. Wow, thank you so much for riding with me. And I hope that some way, somehow, this podcast has actually been impactful. And you've learned 1 or 2 things ever since you started listening to the Becoming You podcast. Well, it feels surreal. I'm so excited. Our 10th episode. And there's the new month of February. Wow. January was a good month. Okay, there were ups and downs, whatnot, but we're still standing strong. I really hope February brings forth great things into our lives. I can't wait. Most times as adults, in our pursuit for professional stability, excellence, we tend to neglect other aspects of our lives. We tend to neglect building personal relationships with friends, family. We mostly tend to overlook nurturing these relationships. We overlook building these relationships. Forgetting that these people, our family, our friends, or our partner, they end up being our sanctuary, our safe space when the going gets tough. In essence, there's a need for us to pay attention to these relationships. We're supposed to have healthy personal relationships, because when we don't, there's always a ripple effect. It affects our professional productivity and even our general well-being. There's a need for a balance, like I would always say. So there's a need for us to pay attention to our personal lives as much as we do to our professional lives. Considering the importance of having a less chaotic private life, on today's episode, we'll be talking about the foundation of healthy relationships, and that is what's communication. We'll be discussing ways in which we can communicate effectively, how it can impact our relationships positively, strengthen our relationships, and generally how we can get better at communicating. Now let's dive into the conversation of the day. Right before we dive in, let's hear what these amazing people think of the adulthood phase.
Adulthood is responsibility.
Adulthood is complicated.
Adulthood is growth.
Adulthood is maturity.
Adulthood is being independent.
Adulthood is stressful.
Adulthood has been confronting.
Adulthood is draining.
Adulthood is decision making.
Adulthood is resilient.
Adulthood is overwhelming.
Adulthood is fun and adventurous.
Remember, I'm not here to demonize this phase, but to say it as it is. Having cared for babies for a long period of time, I have siblings and I took care of most of them. I'm the firstborn. Having cared for them, I know that their major means of communication is crying. They cry when they need anything. They cry when they want something from you. They cry when they need you to do something for them. They always cry. And there's this anxiety it gives us. It's like you're solving a puzzle because you don't know what the child wants exactly. You give them this they don't want, and the child too gets frustrated. We see them increase the intensity in their tears. They cry harder. This thing really annoys me. And I feel this is the perfect depiction of a relationship where communication is lacking. That frustration you feel trying to handle a baby that cannot talk is the same frustration you kind of feel when you're in a relationship, probably romantic, or you have friends and you guys are unable to communicate with each other. You're unable to talk about things. It can actually be very frustrating, and I think we need to fix that this year. We have to make our personal lives and personal spaces safe. We have to make it a sanctuary, basically. Before we move into effective communication, why effective communication, the process of effective communication, I think we need to define communication. What does it mean to communicate? What is communication? Communication is the exchange of information. It can be verbally, like what I'm doing right now, orally. It can be non-verbal, through written text, signs, facial expressions. Our African mothers, they know how to do that facial expression thing. My mom can say 100 things with her face, go, come. I think I learned well. So yeah, it can be through facial expressions, and there's always the giver, there's the receiver, or the speaker and the listener. Sometimes one person can actually perform both functions. I do that a lot. I soliloquize. I literally have conversations with myself. Communication is really important, because what differentiates communicating generally, sending out information, receiving information, from doing it effectively is when a speaker is able to express themselves adequately, clearly, and the listener is able to understand what is the information being passed to them. So when the communication is effective, like, you pay attention to everything. It's not like you're just hearing, you're listening. And it's not like you're just talking, you're actually speaking. I don't know if that's a thing. For an effective communication to take place, there is a need for two individuals or two parties that are ready to do the work. An active speaker who is willing to be honest enough in their conversation, and a great listener who is willing to actually listen. Before we move into discussing how can we, or the importance, I think we should look at why do we have to communicate effectively. We have to, because we tend to build relationships and interact with people that have different backgrounds from us. They have different backgrounds, different belief system, different way of doing things. We have our differences. So communication is the only way we're able to navigate the differences that exist between us and the people we're trying to build relationships with. And inability to communicate well or communicate effectively can often cause rifts in our relationships. It's to cause divide. When you're unable to express yourself properly to somebody, or you tend to always sweep things under the carpet, gradually the carpet becomes a roadblock between you and the person. So the importance of communication, or of communicating effectively, it helps us build this healthier, loving, sweet relationship with our partner, with our friends, with our family members. You're just in this good space. You're free of negativity. When you're in a good space with the people in your personal life, you notice that you're just always happy. You can be having a bad day, then you just remember some certain things and you just feel like you feel loved. You remember how loved you are. You remember how cherished you are. It's a good feeling, really. I remember, whenever I and my girlfriends, whenever we have deep conversations, feel like I'm unlocking a different level of intimacy with them. Communicating properly, effectively, just helps us build this beautiful bond, with our friends. We also intentional conversations, or communicating intentionally, helps us deal with anxiety. I used to say, you should know by now, I am an overthinker. I overthink a lot. So once I'm having problem with somebody, I tend to think about 101 possibilities of what could have gone wrong. Why? I ask myself so many questions, and this would in turn affect my productivity, of course, because I might be working on a particular task and I remember, why did this person do this to me? Why did this person treat me like this? When I noticed that communicating about these things would save me time, I don't have to always worry why. I can just ask the person, why did you do this to me? And I get my answers immediately. Communicating about my feelings has helped me manage my tendency to overthink. In essence, communicating our feelings effectively would help us save time, save us from unnecessary stress, anxiety, and worries. And with all these things, we feel seen, we feel loved, we feel heard. So communicating effectively, or being with people that are able to communicate, able to understand you when you communicate, it just helps foster this sweet, loving relationship. With all these things that I've said, I think we can see that being intentional about how we communicate with our friends, with our family, with people is actually very, very important. And I know communicating is not easy, because expressing your emotions in words can be stressful. It can be very tasking. Now the question is, how do we communicate properly, communicate effectively? I'll say the first thing is intentionality. You have to make the personal decision to be intentional about communicating. It's all about intentionality, for real, and you'll be ready to do the work, because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of intentionality to communicate your emotions, and to ensure that you're communicating in the right way. The second is empathy. You have to be empathetic, really. Use nice words when talking to people, when expressing yourself, even when you're angry. You don't have to go through the route of being abusive, or of hurting your friends because you're angry at them, of saying hurtful words to people. Be nice. There's this friend of mine, she's so good at communicating her feelings. I know she's going to be watching this, definitely. You know yourself. She's still good at it. She makes sure she expresses herself with the right words, maybe not perfect words, but she uses nice words you would listen to. And she always tries to see things from the other person's perspective, from the point of view of the other person. So she's not jumping into conclusion, she's not making assumptions, she's not disregarding the emotion of the other. She always considers everything. And she has actually been somebody that has inspired me to continually work on improving my communication skills. She inspires me greatly. And when you're communicating, always try to use nice, kind, gentle words. You don't have to be aggressive, you don't have to be mean, and you don't have to be condescending. Also, like, for you to communicate effectively, you have to be ready to take responsibility. Remember, it's just a conversation. It's not a court case or an argument. I think I'm guilty here. I'm very argumentative. And so when I'm having conversations with people too, I go into this argument mode easily. You're telling me something and I'm already thinking of point two, counterpoints. So yeah, it's not the best thing to do. It's not the best way to address issues. It's not the best way to talk about things. Take responsibility when you see that you're wrong. Like, sure, you're comfortable with saying the word sorry. Yeah, also, for you to communicate effectively, you have to be an active listener. I'm also guilty of this. I tend to talk a lot. So you have to be an active listener. You have to be willing to listen when people talk to you. Like, don't be quick to bring in your own points. Don't be quick to cut them short when they're speaking. Help them, leave them, let them express themselves. Take mental notes while the person is talking to you. Make sure you're listening. Like, you're listening. You're not just hearing. You're listening. You're taking mental notes. And, for you to ensure that you actually understood the information they were trying to pass to you properly, when they finish, you can just summarize. Oh, okay, you said this and this and this. I understood it as this. Is this what you actually mean? This way, you're trying to show the person that, yeah, I actually care about you. Yeah, we need to talk about this. It's important. And, I'm ready to help us make a friendship or a relationship work. So yeah, always try to be an active listener. Me too. Always try to be an active listener. And that is something I want to even incorporate into my life. I want to talk less and listen more this year. Aside from on my podcast, of course. On my podcast, I have to do the talking. There's no one to listen to. But maybe, hopefully, sometime we'll have someone I'll be listening to. So yeah, always try to be an active listener. Listen. It is very crucial for us not to engage in these conversations when our emotions are heightened. If someone actually does something to trigger you, maybe make you sad, make you angry, you don't have to address it right there and then. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. Fine, we don't have to sweep things under the carpet. At the same time, you don't have to talk about them when your emotions are heightened, because you could say things that you do not want to say and they could cause damages that are not amendable. So yeah, there's always, maybe not the perfect time, but there's a suitable time. So yeah, how do we get this in a time? You just have to bring it up at the right time. Not when you feel hurt, or not when you are still angered, and at the same time not when you feel like it doesn't make sense, because when you keep it for too long, you find it unnecessary. You don't want to talk about it, and it leads to avoidance and resentment. Lastly, we have to be clear when communicating. Like, you don't have to make ambiguous statements, or you don't have to speak in parables or beat around the bush. Say it as it is. Talk about it, like, say it as it is in a nice way, of course. But let's try to be clear when communicating. When communicating our feelings, try to use the right words that clearly express what you feel and how you feel. So yeah, I think we have 6 points here. The first one is intentionality. The second one is empathy. Third one is taking responsibility. Fourth one is active listening. Fifth one is avoid engaging in conversations with heightened emotions. And the last one is try to be clear when communicating. With these 6 things, when we're able to communicate clearly, intentionally, in an empathetic manner, we're able to build relationships, long-lasting relationships. But I can tell you for a fact that communicating effectively or being intentional with expressing your feelings and your emotions can come at a cost. And the cost is, it is time consuming. Communicating and prioritizing everybody is actually very time consuming. And as working professionals who are always busy, or as students who are always busy, how do we then find a balance between our professional, our academic lives, and our personal lives? This is actually what we'll be discussing on the next episode. Time management. How do we manage our time properly? How do we prioritize people in our lives, and at the same time, do the best and be the best we can be in our career and academic field? I'll be sharing some tips. Don't worry, I'm going to go and do the field work for us. Yeah, I'll be discussing how we can manage our time effectively, using softwares, using applications, being disciplined, and let me say stingy with our time while we're still trying to come through for the people we care about. All this and so much more is what we'll be discussing on next week's episode. I hope you do not miss it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and you found it insightful. Well, that'll be all for today. Catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to share, subscribe, like, most importantly, emphasis on share, please. Yeah, that'll be all. Bye. Have a great and productive next week. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next episode. Do not forget to live every moment and leave no room for regrets. Remember to follow this channel so you get notification whenever I drop a new episode. Thank you. Bye.